In a world where appearances decided everything, one black surgeon stood alone, doubted by her peers, racing against time and holding a young life in her hands. In the next few moments, everything would change forever. The fluorescent lights in the conference room buzzed faintly overhead. Maya Carter sat at the end of the long table, hands folded tightly around a patient file, her surgical scrubs still fresh but somehow already feeling heavy. Around her, muted conversations floated between colleagues, low, clipped, careful words, like arrows aimed just shy of her heart. Cole leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, voice just loud enough for Maya to hear. Another diversity hire leading a trauma case. Bold move, he muttered, exchanging a smirk with Grace across the table. Grace didn't bother to hide her sigh. We need results, not social experiments, she whispered back, flipping through her notes without looking at Maya. Maya lowered her eyes, focusing on the file in her lap. Her fingers tensed against the pages, but her face remained composed, unreadable. Rick, the senior nurse, cleared his throat awkwardly, glancing nervously between Maya and the others. Focus. People. Staff meeting. The door swung open sharply. Dr. Simmons, gray-haired, authoritative, usually unflappable, strode in, his face pale, his steps uneven. We have an emergency, he announced, voice raw with something that didn't quite fit his usual control. The room snapped to attention. My daughter. She's in Trauma Bay 2. Car accident. Internal injuries. It's bad. A thick, stunned silence gripped the room. Maya lifted her head slowly, locking eyes briefly with Simmons, who looked away almost immediately. Cole shifted in his seat, clearing his throat. Sir, with all due respect, should we call in Dr. Hayes from downtown? He's the best for unstable internal bleeds. There's no time, Simmons barked. His hands trembled slightly at his sides. Rick stepped forward. We need a lead surgeon now. Eyes darted around the room. No one moved. Grace twirled a pen in her fingers and spoke, her tone sharp, almost defensive. Someone experienced, someone we can trust for this level of risk. Another heavy pause. Maya's voice cut through the tension. Calm, but firm. I'll do it. Every head in the room swiveled toward her, a mix of shock, disbelief. Even a few suppressed scoffs echoed like whispers against the sterile walls. Cole snorted under his breath. This isn't a training exercise. Carter? Maya stood, steady and unshaken. I'm not asking for permission. I'm offering my hands. Simmons stared at her, his jaw tight, his eyes hollow with fear. For a brief second, the room felt frozen in a silent, collective judgment. Rick, to his credit, broke the tension first. I'll prep Trauma Bay 2, he said, voice tight but steady. Simmons finally gave a small, broken nod. Savor, he rasped. Maya tucked the file under her arm and moved toward the door without another word, her steps sure and unhesitant, even as the weight of every skeptical eye pressed against her back. Behind her, Cole muttered, almost too low to catch, let's hope hope is enough. Maya didn't turn around. She didn't need to. The doors to Trauma Bay 2 slammed open as Maya pushed through, the sterile air biting against her face. Monitors beeped in frantic rhythm. Nurses buzzed around the room, eyes darting from the bleeding young woman on the table to Maya. Rick was already there, gloving up. Vitals unstable, massive abdominal trauma. We're losing her fast, he said, tossing a pair of gloves toward Maya. Grace stood near the crash cart, arms folded, tension radiating from her like a storm cloud. "You're really going through with this," she snapped. Her voice low but sharp, Maya slid her hands into the gloves, gaze locked on the young girl barely 18, pale, barely clinging to life. "I'm not here to debate," Maya said, voice even. "Either help or get out." Grace flinched, then grudgingly moved toward the IV line. Cole strode in behind them, pulling a mask over his face, a mocking smile hidden beneath it. "I'll observe," he said coolly, "just in case you need. Back up." Rick shot him a glare but said nothing. "Scalpel," Maya ordered, snapping her hand forward. The nurse hesitated a fraction of a second too long before pressing the instrument into her palm. Maya's hands moved with a grace and speed that left no room for doubt. The first incision was clean, precise. "Clamp here," she directed. Rick obeyed instantly, his movements quick and sure. Maya's mind raced through possibilities. Blood loss estimates, injury patterns, surgical plans. But her face remained carved from stone. Grace leaned closer, her voice dripping with skepticism. "You sure you know what you're doing? This isn't a practice dummy." Maya didn't even blink. "If you're not part of the solution, step out of my OR." A heartbeat of silence, and then Grace backed off, muttering under her breath. The bleeding worsened. Rick barked out, "Pressure dropping, heart rate spiking." Maya scanned the mess of torn vessels and muscle. She needed to act fast or the girl would code. "Prep for rapid infuser. I need more exposure," Maya said, voice sharp. "Retractor. Now." Another brief pause. Another glance exchanged behind her back. Cole whispered to Grace, "Just loud enough. This is going to be a disaster. Just wait." Maya ignored them. Her hands moved with practiced confidence, isolating the bleeding source. She clamped, stitched, shifted angles, commanding the room by sheer force of will. "Blood products ready." Rick called out. "Good," Maya said. "Hang 2 units. Bolus now." Minutes blurred into a storm of alarms. Shouted orders. Frantic adjustments. Then, the monitors began to stabilize. The bleeding slowed. A nurse exhaled sharply. Realizing she'd been holding her breath, Maya leaned back slightly, eyes scanning the monitors. Heart hammering. Rick looked up at her, voice hoarse. "We've got her back." Maya allowed herself a small nod. "Not done yet. Close carefully. She's fragile." As they worked, Maya caught Simmons' figure through the observation window, his hands pressed against the glass. Watching, face lined with fear and hope. The tide was turning, but Maya knew better than to let her guard down. Not yet. Not until the last stitch was placed. Not until the whispers stopped. Not until the life she fought for breathed easy again. The OR felt like it was shrinking, the air thick with tension. "BP's dropping again," Rick shouted. Checking the monitors, 70/40 and falling. Maya's mind sharpened instantly. More fluids. Now prep the crash cart just in case. She ordered. Grace hesitated. Glancing toward Cole, "We're losing her." "Maya," Grace said. Her voice edged with something almost cruel. "Maybe it's time to call someone else, someone with more experience." Maya's hands didn't falter. She pressed down with her retractor, searching for the hidden bleed. "She doesn't have time for your doubts. Hang another unit. Get me better suction." Grace clenched her jaw, but obeyed. Cole leaned casually against a counter, arms crossed, mask half pulled down. "You're gambling with her life," he said, his voice low, slicing. "You really think you can pull this off?" Maya didn't look at him. She focused on the field, isolating the bleeding vessel, No, she said quietly. I know I can. A heavy pause. Rick leaned closer, whispering urgently. Pressure's not responding. She's slipping fast. Maya's breath slowed. Every second mattered. She's tearing internally. Maya muttered, We need a Pringle maneuver. Grace blinked. Stunned. That's experimental here. Maya's gaze snapped up. Sharp and unyielding. She'll die if we don't. Clamp the portal triad. I'll isolate the liver lobe manually. Rick moved immediately, trusting her. Grace hovered a moment longer, then grimly handed over the clamp. Maya, this is insane, Cole said, pushing off the counter. If she codes, it's on you. She's already dying, Maya said, cutting clean through the fear in the room. You want to save her or watch her bleed out? No answer. Maya set her jaw and slipped the clamp into place. The bleeding slowed fractionally, but enough. Vitals stabilizing. Slightly, Rick said, a thread of hope in his voice. Maya leaned in, her hands a blur of precision and speed. We're not done, she said. We buy her minutes. We fix it now. Cole said nothing. He just stared. Something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Above them, through the window, Simmons pressed his forehead against the glass, a silent witness to the brutal fight for his daughter's life. In that moment, the whispers, the doubts, the barriers, all of it blurred into one single, unspoken command. Save her. And Maya moved faster. The monitors let out a harsh alarm. Flatlining in 10 seconds if we don't act, Rick barked, urgency cracking in his voice. Maya's fingers worked faster, clamping, stitching, repositioning. Get me a second clamp, she shouted, sweat beading under her surgical cap. Grace froze, panic flashing across her face. I said, clamp! Maya's voice cracked the air like a whip. Rick thrust the clamp into her hand. Without missing a beat, Maya angled it across the portal triad. Pressure firm, but delicate. She's coding. Grace cried. Maya, it's over. No. Maya snapped, her voice a raw blade. Not on my table. The room spun around the bright pool of blood. The desperate gasps of the dying girl. The stinging scent of adrenaline and failure. Cole stepped forward. Voice cold. Step aside. Let someone else. Maya cut him off. Fury simmering behind her calm. Pick up a scalpel or shut up. Cole. A tense silence. Rick called out. Pulse faint, but there. A spark of hope. Maya seized it like a lifeline. Rick. Prepare for cardiac massage. Grace. Epinephrine. Now. Grace hesitated a beat too long. Rick moved first, slamming the syringe into Maya's waiting hand. Go! Maya barked. Maya drove the needle clean into the heart muscle, pushed the plunger, willed the life back into the body beneath her hands. The monitor screeched, then jumped, weak, but present, a pulse. She's coming back, Rick gasped, relief flooding his face. Maya closed her eyes for half a heartbeat, absorbing the sound, the fragile beat of a life refusing to quit. Stabilize her. Get ready to transfer to ICU, Maya ordered, her voice low but fierce. Grace slumped against the crash cart, pale, staring at Maya like she was seeing her for the first time. Cole said nothing. His jaw worked silently, fists clenched at his sides. Through the observation window, Simmons sagged against the wall, covering his face with one shaking hand. Inside the OR, for the first time all day, no one questioned who was in charge. No one doubted who had saved her. Maya peeled off her bloody gloves, chest heaving, and looked around the room. Next time, she said softly, voice cutting through the heavy silence. Believe in the ones you underestimate. Then she turned away, heading for the ICU doors without waiting for permission, applause, or forgiveness. The gurney rattled down the hallway toward the ICU, flanked by Rick and two nurses. Maya walked just behind them, stripping off her gown, blood staining her scrubs. Grace trailed after her, uncharacteristically silent. Even Cole said nothing. Though his mouth opened and closed like he wanted to find some excuse, any excuse, Rick slowed beside her, voice low. You pulled her back from the edge. Doc. Maya gave him a quick glance, reading the rare admiration in his face. I just did my job, she said simply. No, Rick said, shaking his head. You did what none of us had the guts to try. Ahead, Simmons stood in the hallway, waiting. The gurney stopped. The nurses peeled off, leaving father and daughter barely stable. Breathing, but alive, Simmons looked at Maya, his face an open wound of gratitude and guilt. He stepped closer, voice raw. I doubted you, he said. No pretense left. Today, you saved my world. The words hit harder than any of the earlier sneers or doubts. Maya swallowed, chest tightening. She didn't smile, didn't bow her head. She just nodded once sharp, dignified. She fought just as hard as we did. Maya said quietly, she's strong. She'll pull through. Simmons blinked fast, struggling for composure. Around them, the corridor seemed to hold its breath. Cole shifted awkwardly behind her. Grace bit her lip, casting her eyes down. Rick broke the silence first, stepping forward. Dr. Carter, he said formally, voice carrying down the hallway. It was an honor working beside you. Maya finally allowed herself a small breath of air, her shoulders easing slightly. Behind her, whispers started different this time. Not contempt, not dismissal. Respect. Real, hard-earned respect. Simmons extended a trembling hand toward her. She hesitated only a heartbeat before clasping it briefly, but firmly. No words could undo the months of slights, the quiet humiliations, the distrust she had endured, but this moment cracked the first real fracture in that wall, and Maya Carter had earned it the hard way, without waiting for more congratulations. She turned and walked away, her head high, the weight finally starting to lift from her shoulders. The hospital would never look at her the same way again, and that was just the beginning. The next morning, the hospital halls buzzed not with the usual chaotic energy, but with something quieter, heavier. Whispers chased Maya wherever she went, though they were softer now, laced with a strange new weight. In the staff lounge, Cole leaned against the coffee machine, arms crossed, watching Maya with unreadable eyes. Rick entered, tossing his clipboard onto a chair. Morning, he said casually, but there was something almost deferential in his tone. Maya gave a polite nod, moving to pour herself a coffee. Grace stood near the counter, fiddling with a stack of files. She cleared her throat awkwardly. About yesterday, she began, her voice low. Maya didn't turn around. You don't have to say anything, she said evenly, stirring her cup. I didn't do it for applause. Grace shifted uncomfortably. Still, you were incredible, she admitted. Almost grudgingly, Cole finally spoke, his voice quieter than usual. You saved Simmons' kid. No one else could have pulled that off. Maya set her coffee down slowly, facing him fully. You're wrong, she said, not unkindly. Others could have. They just didn't step up. The room went still. Rick chuckled under his breath. Well, You sure made the rest of us look like cowards. Grace sighed, finally lifting her gaze to meet Maya's. People underestimated you. I underestimated you. Maya held her gaze a moment, searching for sarcasm and finding none. I don't need apologies, Maya said. Just don't doubt the next person who doesn't look like you expect them to. A heavy pause. Then Rick nodded, almost solemn. You're right, he said. Won't happen again. At that moment, the door swung open. Simmons stepped in, still looking worn but steadier than the day before. Everyone straightened unconsciously. Simmons crossed the room in 3 long strides and stopped in front of Maya. Without hesitation, he extended his hand. Dr. Carter, he said, voice steady. I owe you more than I can ever repay. Maya took his hand firmly. You owe me nothing, she said. Just remember that skill isn't limited by what you see. Simmons nodded, his face unreadable for a second. Then he smiled. Not forced, genuine. Maybe you're exactly what this hospital needs, he said quietly. Around the room, there was a small shift. Not everything was fixed, not yet, but the cracks in the old walls of judgment were showing. And Maya could feel it. She had walked into this hospital a shadow. Now, she was undeniable. The corridor outside the ICU buzzed quietly with morning rounds. Maya stood at the nurse's station, reviewing a chart, her body still running on little more than instinct and black coffee. Rick leaned in, voice low. Board's been talking about you all morning. Maya didn't look up. Not interested in gossip. This isn't gossip, Rick said, smiling slightly. This is history. Before she could ask, Simmons appeared, walking briskly toward her, a folded envelope in his hand. Dr. Carter, he said, stopping just short of breathless. You're requested upstairs. Boardroom. Now. Maya raised an eyebrow. I have patience. This can't wait. Simmons insisted. His face carried a mix of pride and urgency. Trust me. Reluctantly, Maya handed the chart to Rick. Cover for me. Rick saluted half-jokingly. Wouldn't dream of doing it better. The boardroom lights buzzed faintly overhead. 6 senior doctors sat around the polished table, shifting papers, clearing throats. Maya entered. Scrub sleeves rolled to her elbows, blood still faintly staining the hem. Dr. Lee, stern and sharp-eyed, spoke first. Dr. Carter, please sit. Maya took a chair without a word. Simmons remained standing beside her. Dr. Mills leaned forward, his fingers steepled. We owe you an apology, he said bluntly. Maya tilted her head slightly. An apology for underestimating you, Mills said, for seeing a resume and still doubting the hands behind it. Lee nodded grimly. Your performance yesterday was extraordinary, beyond expectations, beyond bias. The room seemed to hold its breath. Maya stayed silent for a moment, weighing her words carefully. I didn't operate to prove anything, she said finally. I operated because a life was slipping away. Simmons smiled tightly. And because you have the rare courage to act when others freeze. Dr. Raoul Lee tapped the table. We're formally nominating you for the Valor in Medicine Award, hospital-wide recognition. Maya blinked once, slow and measured. That's not why I'm here. We know, Mills said, and that's exactly why you deserve it. Another beat of silence. Maya looked around the room, the same room where judgments had once been passed in whispers, and saw something different now. Not pity, not tolerance, respect. She exhaled quietly. I'll accept it, she said. Not for the title. For everyone who's ever been told they're not enough before they even start. The board members nodded, some solemn, some ashamed. Maya stood, her chair scraping softly against the floor. She didn't need applause. She didn't need validation. She already knew who she was. Now, finally, they did too. The auditorium buzzed with low murmurs as the hospital staff gathered. Rows of white coats blurring together under the soft lights. Maya stood backstage, smoothing the front of her clean scrubs. Heart steady, breath even. Rick appeared at her side, grinning. "You nervous?" Maya arched an eyebrow. "I stitched an artery under full code blue yesterday. This," she shrugged, "just another procedure." Rick chuckled. "Well, they're finally seeing you for who you are." "Maybe," Maya said quietly. "Or maybe they're seeing themselves a little clearer." The announcement boomed through the speakers. "Please welcome Dr. Maya Carter." Applause erupted as she walked across the stage. Some clapped hesitantly, others with real force. Maya met no one's eyes until she reached the podium. Simmons handed her the award plaque. His voice thick. "You changed us," he said simply. Maya took it, but didn't look at it. Instead, she leaned into the microphone, her voice cutting clean across the room. "I was judged before I ever spoke a word here," she said. "I was doubted before I ever picked up a scalpel." A hush fell over the crowd. But when a life was slipping away, "It wasn't my skin you needed. It was my hands." A ripple of emotion swept the audience. "I stand here today, not because I needed validation," Maya continued, "but because everyone deserves to be seen for what they can do, not for how they look." Cole shifted uncomfortably in the third row. Grace stared down at her lap, her hands wringing nervously. Maya's voice softened. "And to those still whispering doubts, I'll keep letting my work answer for me." She stepped back from the mic, holding the plaque low at her side, and gave a slight nod. No victory dance, no grandstanding, just quiet, undeniable truth. And this time, no one looked away.